All right, hey guys, we are continuing on with the power of one more, and we are in chapters 10 and 11. And yeah, really, really, really good. Convicting chapters. So what's so funny is I actually sat down to read and I was like, I feel like I have book club coming up here. And I looked at my phone, I'm like, doesn't say, and I clicked every Tuesday and it doesn't say lead book club anywhere because that's always what I do. I put lead, but I put lead in front of, and I didn't have it. So I went to my our book club chat and I was on the schedule today. So I was like, wow. And then I opened it up to chapter 10 and I'm like, oh my goodness, that is one of the things that the higher standard, and how talked about it in chapter 9. He talked about that there's a difference, like that your standards are really what sets your goals. Like it's good to have goals, but it's even more important to have standards and that your standards are actually going to drive your goals. Because if you have goals, but I mean, the premise of the chapter, I'm going to keep this super short and sweet because we are starting later. Um, but if you have goals, but your standards slash actions don't meet your goals, then you're not going to meet your goals because it's basically, yeah, I have goals, I have dreams, but if you're not working hard, you have to have hard, strong standards in order to meet that. And he uses lots and lots of explanations. A lot of times he talks about like fitness, um, but it's basically like your actions have to be stronger than your words, basically. And so I highlighted a ton of stuff in here, lots of stars. Um, but yeah, so I don't know. I could go way deep into that. I don't know. Yeah, he ends it with setting higher standards in your life is not easy, but consider the alternative. If you aim low and you set unworthy goals and create uninspired standards, you'll end up living to a life far below what you're capable of and far below what you deserve. And I just thought that was so good. I think so many times we set our goals, and I know I'm guilty of this for sure. I have been. Um, in lots of different things. But if you set low goals, like just so that you can hit them and you never are working like to uncomfortable levels, if you're not shooting for higher things, if you're not pushing yourself with your standards to get there, then yeah, you're not really going to be driving yourself anywhere. And it's I work in fitness all the time. I've done this and that makes so much sense to me. Like if you have goals in your fitness with your fitness levels, if you have goals in your relationships, if you have goals for your job, if you have goals for anything, you're going to have to be doing the things in order to reach those goals or you're not going to reach them. And then you're going to, you can't like blame, if I don't reach my goals, you have to like step back and look, okay, well, what did I do or not do? So it all comes back to the standards that you set. And then he gives he gives 9 points on that. So I can't wait to hear what you guys think of that. And then chapter 11, talking about one more thinkers and possibility achievers. And again, it's the thinking and the achieving. It's like, it's all exactly what Jen just talked about. It's all actions speak louder than words, but not nearly as often. I just opened that to Mark Twain's quote on 144. Um, that our actions need to drive everything. Um, so yeah, that's about as far as I'm going to go because I want to make sure that you guys have time to share. So, opening the floor, would love to hear your thoughts. There's not very many of us on, so you guys better talk. Or you get to listen to me talk.
Well, I liked it when he said, you kind of touched on this a little bit when you talked about standards, but when he talks about tolerating. and tolerance. It's only when you decide that you can no longer tolerate, and he's talking about relationships here, the treatment you're getting or the business results that you're getting that you can change them. It's only when you decide you can no longer tolerate the amount of money that you're making that you'll begin to move forward in your goal to making more money. Like there are some points in life where you just have to kind of get fed up and say, okay, enough's enough. I got to do something about this.
Mm-hmm.
And whether it's relationships or business or finances or our businesses, like, I've had people, well, I've been the same rank for 8 years. Okay. Are you tolerating that? What are we doing? And so I just like that. It's kind of just like calling it out, like, well, if you're tolerating it, then that's your choice. Then that's what you're gonna get.
Mm. That was the quote I was just gonna say. I looked right
Uh, of
at
course.
Yeah.
There was another quote in the other chapter, but I don't remember, so I'll let anybody else talk. Kristen, that was on page 127, the first full paragraph.
I'm gonna share a little bit about my most favorite section in both chapters that I highlighted, exclamation pointed, wrote this by it, underlined all of things. It's so good and it's so profound and it's so simple. So it was on 143. Measuring your progress by measuring your actions makes you a possibility achiever. Are there risks and costs associated with taking action? Of course there are, but the risks and costs associated with not taking action are a lot more. Inaction stifles progress and kills personal growth. You guys, that is like, poof. Your time is finite and limited. So why would you continue to sit still instead of engaging in the life you are meant to lead? Oh my word. I loved that. Did you guys love that?
Mhm.
So I mean, there are so many examples in our businesses that you can put with this. But one simple one that I thought of was just reaching out. As simple as reaching out and how that might be hard. And Jen Thomas talked about this a little bit too. That might be a little hard for some of us to reach out yet, or whatever that is. But so are there risks and costs associated with reaching out? Yes, there are, right? You might get a no. Uh-huh. And that's sometimes hard because we take it personal, which we shouldn't. But the risk and cost with not reaching out just because you're going to get a no are way more. Because guess what? If you reach out and get that no, you have planted a seed. You have started a conversation. You have made them aware that you are here and your door is open and that you have something that can help them. And next 6 months down the road, when they're really struggling, they're going to remember you because you reached out, even though they said no. And so that could cost you somebody huge on your team, right? If you don't even reach out with to someone like that because of the risks or the actions. And that's just one example. You guys, there's so many examples, but not taking action, it kills personal growth and stifles progress. You're not going to move anywhere if you don't take action on that, even if it's scary and hard, right? And I love the ending where he said, your time is finite and limited. And we all know that being believers, the world is not our home, right? Our home is in heaven. And so making me think, like, yeah, it is finite. We are finite. And so why wouldn't we like seize the day and seize that opportunity and do what God's calling us to do right away, even though there's risks and it's scary and all of that. I don't know. That just was profound to me. And I actually have a new business builder starting, you guys, and I had a coaching call with her today. And she said something to me on the call that I was like, yes, she was talking about getting no's. And she's like, a no doesn't scare me. She said, it doesn't have anything to do with me. She said, it has everything to do with them and if they're ready or not ready. And it's okay if they're not ready. and that's one more person that I have talked to, and she got it. She had it, right? And I was like, yes, this. And so, and it ties right in with that point too, or that example that I was giving. So anyway, maybe you guys can think about examples in your own businesses, or risks and costs that you're struggling with taking action. So I want you to, think about that too. Like, what is it that I'm not moving on or taking action on because it's risky and scary, but that could really be a detriment to my business if I don't. Okay. So anyway, loved that. Oh, good. So.
I was on page 137 when it said that change creates consequences. It kind of made me pause because when I read the word consequences, my mind doesn't like go to a positive thing, probably because I have little kids. But then as I was reading, I did really like how he talked about setting the higher standards is creating like the consequences as he words it. And I felt like a lot of things kept coming back to how like our actions are all tied in. So as we set our higher standards, then our consequences are going to be higher. And if our standards are low, then obviously like our yeah, outcome is going to be lower as well. And then I also really liked too when he talked about not sure really quick here what page it was on. Um, but basically, as we progress and grow, when we have setbacks because of the growth we've had, we'll hopefully be able to like bounce back faster. So we'll all fail. I mean, everybody fails at something at some point. Um, but as we grow, we can bounce forward and bounce back from that um, better and quicker, hopefully, than what we have in the past. And I think a lot of that, I just think of like our book clubs and personal growth, that we do. Um, and all of that really just helps us grow as a person so that when we do have the setbacks, we're able to just hopefully, um, kind of jump back into things and it doesn't take us back as far as it maybe would have if it would have happened, let's say, at the start of our business or something like that. So I really liked how he touched on that as well. And I found where he was talking about it, and it says, once you dust yourself off, you'll be in a better place to move on to your new goals and other higher standards. That was on page 138. So I thought that was really good too.
I really like the section on watching a silent movie, because I think it just really speaks to the point he's driving home about how, like, if you were basically to watch yourself like a silent movie, what would your actions tell you about yourself? But I also thought of it as like, how many people have I tried to get to do this business with me? And I feel like, I keep hearing no, or we dabble a little bit. But that was a big aha moment for me. And I'm not sure why it just struck me, but it struck me like, duh, take the committed product taker. Go talk to them. They're the ones who are committed. Like, why am I not going back? Like, why am I, I've said it to them quite a bit in the beginning. And then, a couple months go by. Why am I not going back again? Because if they're still super committed and ordering every single month and they're loving their products, why not? So, I think it's the importance of why we continue to get fresh blood, so to speak, in every month too, because we need to be finding those people who want to dream big, who want to um, set good goals and standards, or you learn about their standards by their actions. And so, I loved that. I also hit me just because I'm a teacher and I'm a literacy teacher and I'm constantly telling kids all the time, You can infer a lot about the character by what they say and what they do. And so when you think about what your people are saying in their voice clips back to you or in their text back to you and what they do actually, it tells us a lot about, are they putting their mouth in alignment with their actions? And if they are, then there's somebody to keep pursuing and keep asking and keep guiding and supporting, and they're worth the investment, I guess is what I'm saying. So anyway, I just really liked that, and I thought that's kind of creepy to think about myself too, like watching myself day in and day out. People, like, sometimes I think, oh, people must just think I'm insane, but that's me.
But that's what makes a difference too. That's why it's so important for us to like practice what we preach, with healthy lifestyle, with sharing about the products, sharing about the business, doing all that. Because if you're not doing those things while you're talking to people, then they're gonna have a hard time believing you, like you have to be practicing what you're preaching. And yeah, it's Jen talked about that too. It's what gives you credibility, and then those people, they'll, like Sal said too, like they'll remember you. Like when you reach out to people, they'll remember you. When you go back to people, they're gonna remember, oh yeah, like when they start feeling better, they're gonna be like, oh yeah, Kristen said, take a selfie. Okay. And then, so we just, we keep, yeah, we keep acting on those things ourselves. We keep the action in the forefront.
I don't know about you guys, but I have never heard that quote from Martin Luther King Jr. You always hear the "I have a dream" type stuff, but I never heard that quote on 149 before, and and it's so true. Like one of the tragedies of life is that men seldom bridge a gulf between practice and profession, between doing and saying. How often are our lives characterized by high blood pressure of creeds and an anemia of deeds? This strange dichotomy, this agonizing gulf between the ought and the is, represents a tragic theme of man's earthly pilgrimage. And it just made me think of Romans 7, like 15 and on, where Paul says, for I do not understand my own actions, for I do not do what I want, but I do the very thing I hate. And how that bleeds into all of life, you know. Um, like, and I wrote it down, like even for the business, like um for the calling I want to do, I do not do, but instead watch movies or procrastinate or make bread or whatever it is. It just how pervasive that is into all of life. And I just thought that whole quote from Martin Luther King Jr. was just really good.
So good, Jen.
I was going to go back to the standards again. And then you talked about those 9 things, the universal standards to apply. And, we talk about understanding our why a lot. Excuse me. But then what the number 7 and 8, forget perfection and don't overthink it. How often don't we have people do that? They can't send out a message because they don't know what to say. They want to be perfect. They want it to be perfect, and they overthink it, and then they just plain don't do it. So then that action part to raise your standards, because I found that interesting too, that your standards are to grow. Um, you know, uh, we don't just stay in our standards. Our standards are to grow. And then because a lot of times we compare ourselves, then we talked about that too, comparing ourselves with others. And when we do that, we're not growing. We're just looking back, or we're looking at ourselves and thinking bad of ourselves. So, your standards should be challenging so that you can grow and change along the way. And I thought, and haven't we all maybe found that, you know, through our years of Plexus or whatever, that we are growing and that our standards are probably growing too. I didn't catch that our standards, I just figured they were a godly standard, we will, and I think that's true. Our godly standards will stay the same because of whose we are. But I think we have growth, the whole personal growth, like Jen was talking about too tonight. So and maybe along that same line with Kristen, when she talked about the silent movie thing, I wrote down too, if someone were to follow me around for a week, would they be able to tell, first of all, whose whose I am? Have I been with Christ? Whose I am? But then what are my goals? What's my why? What are my standards? Will they see by my actions that I'm working towards a goal, not just putzing around or whatever, towards a goal with not a deadline, that Jen talked about too. So I love that silent movie thing too.
And I can add on to yours too, Jerry Lynn, and just talking about, when you are taking in and taking in and taking in book clubs, when you're taking in calls, when you're taking in whatever, um, it's easy to allow yourself to overthink it and to allow yourself to spin, but action cures all. And it's so important that you keep moving the needle forward by doing, even when it feels robotic at times, even when it feels um, like you can't show up. I constantly tell myself, would I do this on a real job? I'm not saying this isn't a real job. I shouldn't say it that way. But would I not show up if people were depending on me? And whether that's in this business or yeah, or would I hire myself? Yeah, Jerry Lynn, that's a really good one too. So that standard has to be high enough that you would, but then also, like, am I likable? Like I know it's not the huge thing, but do people want to interact with me? Do I show that I care? Do I show that I want to be on in their corner? Um, so I think that you can get set, overthinking, but like we say to people too, when it comes to their faith, you can read the Bible all you want, but if you don't go out and put it to action, then what are you reading the Bible for? So I just think that hit me when I was reading through those things. It's like, this is so much like so many other things in our lives. Um, and we just have to treat this to the same standards that we hold for ourselves in other areas, is what I'm trying to say.
That's great thoughts, girls. Love all of this. Any other thoughts? It's 10:06, 9:06 where I live.
Can I share something real quick?
Yes, ma'am.
I just worked all day and taught a Bible study before this. And so in the Bible study, they were talking about how um, our entire lives are meant to be spent, and we should not arrive at the finish line with 1 ounce of energy or 1 ounce um, of anything left in us because we've spent everything for the Lord, right? And I think about that, like what the calling is for me to do this as a to minister to others, to bring other women to a place of health so that they can do God has created them to do and called them to do, and what the enemy has stolen from them, that they have an opportunity to take that back. And so it was just like sitting in my mind as I'm reading through all of this, just to set your standards higher, just um, to make sure that our actions are matching what we say we believe, and like Kristen just said, if we're reading the Bible and then we're not doing anything with it, what good is that, right? If we're setting goals and setting standards for ourselves, but we're not really doing anything with it, what good is that? And so I think that's just really kind of struck me, to just give yourself, stop overthinking it, and stop doing all those things, and just move forward and do the thing, right? And whether it's hard or it's not, just like life, like, are we running our race well? Um, are we working our business well? Are we showing up well? Are we doing the things and reflecting the Lord in all the things that we're doing? That's kind of how this all tied together in my brain. I hope that made sense.
Yeah, that's so good. That is so good. Thank you for sharing that, Sarah. Any other?
Say something just
Yeah,
really quick.
absolutely,
Talking
Jen.
about I'm sorry, somebody else going to talk. I was just going to say, talking about the possible and looking at what we do, whether it be sharing Christ, if it's this work and this calling that we have stepped into, um, it's possible. And we have to believe that it isn't about us, and it's gonna be more than us that makes it possible. So that's just where I went with that last chapter. I was just like, yeah, I just have to believe in my worth and in the possible, instead of saying, that's impossible. I can't do that. I can't send, 15 messages to today, or I can't talk to that many people, or I can't friend somebody every day. I can, and it's possible.
Yes.
I would say in Christ, all things are possible. Just in that.
Amen. Because a lot of times, so much of this and so much in life, it is hard to do. I don't know how people do life without Christ, right? Like, we as believers, he's our cornerstone for all things. And that's why I know when we read books like this, we can identify with that even deeper, because we know that with us, it's not possible, but with him it is. And we need to rely on him a lot more. And I know for me, when I fall away from, just knowing who I can be and what I'm capable, what I'm capable of because of him, it makes me feel more invincible, and it just gives me more confidence. And I know that I can do the hard things and the things that people say, or the no's, or whatever. Or even the things that the lies and negative things, like that Jen had us write down, like those things, like that's not of God, right? Those are not of the Lord. That is of the devil and the deceiver. He wants us to believe the negative things. And so that's why God is a God of possibility and truth and light. Um, and I love that that's really what we're talking about here too. And so we have to take action on setting those standards of those higher standards, because I think we don't set the standards because we're so willing to, or I mean, we don't want to think of the impossible things, because we'd rather stay safe, and we'd rather we'd rather believe the lies, right? We believe the lies because that's safe and it keeps us small or whatever. But we can believe big things because God put those dreams in our hearts. And so those are possible because of him. But we have to act on them. So, all right, friends. Unless anyone else has something to share, we can wrap it up. Thanks for jumping on, everybody. And yeah, if you didn't listen, if you weren't able to get on team call, listen to the recording and make sure you have a pen and paper ready because it's really, really good. She did a great job. So, all right. See you, everybody. Have a great night. Thank you. Bye-bye.